Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Romi Resardi. In this video, I will try to explain about strategies in ELT teaching and learning in teaching reading. First, I would like to say thank you for Prof. Nenden and Prof. Valtri for giving me this opportunity to explain this topic. This topic is based from the book named The Practice of English and How to Teach English by Jeremy Harmer. And some of the elements in this video also comes from articles and journals. So without further ado, let's move to our discussion. In this today agenda, we will try to explore about what is reading, and we will try to find what the reason for teaching reading, and we will explore about teaching reading strategies and identify problems in teaching reading. So, what is reading? One of the main skills in learning language is reading. It is like reading itself is like a key for a gate that leads to the land that filled with so many knowledge. While reading is considered to be boring activity because of the monotone or controlled by the teacher, it is still an important process in learning language. That is why we need to make effective strategies in teaching reading. Many researchers already trying to define what is reading itself, like reading activity. From all of those, I conclude that reading is selective decoding activity in comprehending between the word within the literal context. Like it is an activity that consists of two processes, such word recognition and comprehension. The purpose of readings depends on the teacher itself. Like on one side, teaching reading purpose is to make students able to analyze the connection between words provided in the book or the written text. On the other hand, teaching reading purpose could be like to make students enjoy reading while making them getting used in understanding the context from the book they read. Principle of teaching reading. The principle behind reading can be categorized into 6 principles. First, encourage students to read as often and as much as possible. Reading itself is an active occupation because when we read, we need to imagine the connection between words and the context of the things that we read, like such is there any relationship between the arguments with the picture attached. That is why the students need to experience much of the text, like as they must read as much as possible. Second is students need to be engaged with what they read. Teachers should maintain the engagement when they teach reading context. This is because the teacher needs to know is the students really understand the context of the text, or the students face difficulties in reading the text. The third one is students should be encouraged to respond to the content of the reading text, not only just the language. Teachers should also pay attention toward the students' comprehension toward the reading materials. The teacher should stimulate the students to give their opinion toward what is the purpose of the text itself. Like, is there any message delivered from the text? This activity could improve students' ability to speak up and expressing their feelings toward the topic. Next one, prediction is major factor in reading. Many elements of the book sometimes give hints what topic we could expect as the reader from the book. This could give the teacher ways in their teaching. They also could give hints in the learning process to the students will be more engaged and enthusiastic in the learning activities. 5. Match the tasks or assignments to the topic. In making assignment, the teacher also needs to consider what topic already being delivered. The assignment needs to be linked toward the content that taught in the learning activities. The teacher must think through what is the right questions that can make students feel determined in finishing the assignments, because some questions could lead the students toward boredom, and some questions can make students feel excited when facing them. Last but not least, could teacher exploit reading text to the full? The teacher could ask questions and give the students like chance to discuss the text with your friends. In this case, the students that face difficulties could be able to close the gap of performance. In addition, the teacher also could ask the students about how the words are formed. In this case, the teacher can make many possible activities related to the structure. So, type of reading. There are two types of teaching reading. First is extensive, and the second one is intensive. So, what is extensive? Extensive reading refers to reading activities pursuing entertainment from the written text. In this approach, students usually have freedom in choosing the reading materials because of the nature in this approach is reading for pleasure. Furthermore, extensive reading gives students motivation in doing reading activities. This reading style usually applied outside the classroom activities and thus encourage student independent learning. On the other hand, intensive reading refers to detailed analytical in obtaining specified information contained in the written form. In this approach, the student will be assigned toward the text that already prepared, thus this approach applied mainly inside the classroom activities. The example material for intensive is like extensive reading, but the difference, like already mentioned above, is the context in intensive reading is already chosen by the teacher, not the students. And the example of material is could be newspaper, novel, poems, comic, or other books that the students interest meet the students' interest. Likewise, looking toward the two nature of those types of reading, teachers still have an active roles in the teaching and learning reading activities. The teacher needs to encourage the students to read if they stuck in the process of reading. The teacher also could help to pick the book if the students asking about some recommendation in reading activities. By doing this, the teacher can maintain the performance and the enthusiasm of the students in the learning activities. Then, reading process. Reading process could be divided into three stages. The first one is before reading, second one is during reading, and the last one is after reading. So, what could the teacher and students do before reading? Like prior reading, they could access prior knowledge. The teacher also could ask for prediction based on the cover of the books and could ask another question to the students like, is there any memory or experience the students have that related toward the book? They also could discuss key vocabulary that will appear in the book later. Second one, during reading. Students in this stage will read silently. Teacher will direct students in reading, but teacher could also give freedoms toward the students in this activity. Teacher also select appropriate reading strategies and focus questions. The last one, or the last stage, is after reading. Reflects on strategies will be held by teacher and students toward what like the teaching and learning material that already presented. The teacher and the students also could discuss characters and content of the book. And last, they could also compare error prediction to what the actual event. Next is what is the reason why the teacher should teach reading. The first one is reading is fundamental to function in today's society. By reading, the students could get a common knowledge that really could be really useful in their daily social life. And the second one is reading develops the mind. By reading, the brain of the reader can be trained because it processing the words they catch from the reader itself. Thus, the brain will have much more experience in processing information. The next one is with reading, the reader discover new things. By reading, the students or the reader can know about new information that probably up to date or they haven't already known before, from the past. And then reading develops imagination. Sometimes while we're reading, we try to imagine when the protagonist battle with the antagonist, we try to imagine the scene, the battle epically, and that's why reading it could develop imagination. And thus it could also increase the creative side of people, because when we imagine, we try to predict what will happen in the next scene, in the next book. That is why our creativity skill will be increased slowly or fast. And the last one, reading also improves spelling. Reading, both reading loudly or silently, could increase our improvement in pronunciation, because when we read, we sometimes try to make pronunciation from the word that probably difficult to pronounce, or we try to pronounce the word itself to make it more we can remember it longer. That is why it could also increase the students' spelling or pronunciation. Next one is teaching reading strategies. Using suitable strategy in teaching reading in the learning activity is a necessity. The reason is to prevent the problematic elements that already mentioned above, in order to bring the teaching and learning atmosphere that could benefit the students in the context, and importantly improving their comprehension toward the text. The teacher can use strategies in their teaching reading, like making connection, retelling, asking question, and making prediction. These 4 strategies will be explained in the next slide. First one, making connection. The teacher can ask the students to analyze the connection from the new information that the students obtain from reading with the information that they already know. By asking a specific question, it could also help the students in starting to learn the pattern of the connection itself if the student is still in elementary level. By this approach, the student will be trained to face many different contexts and elements inside the written form that they read, and thus increase their comprehension in reading context. Second one is retelling. The teacher can ask the students to retell the text again toward the class with their own language. The teacher also can request the students to draw the moment, or the teacher also could prepare the pictures first, then ask the students to arrange the picture in direct order based on the text. Consequently, this approach helps the students improving their understanding toward the text. The next one is asking question. The teacher can ask the students to always make questions related to the text they read. The question could be something that the students find it hard to comprehend, or to connect it to the other context, or things that the student wonder after reading the text. And the last one is making prediction. After the main reading session, the teacher could ask the students about their opinion toward what will happen next based from the text they read. The teacher could also ask the students about what kind of text it is, like it is text based on fiction or non-fiction. In this stage, it can help the teacher to evaluate the students' reading comprehension. Predicting also could hint the students, is the students able to understand and comprehend what is going on in the text, like that from what they read. The next one is problem in teaching reading. There are some misconceptions in teaching reading in the teaching and learning activities. The most common one is how the teacher teach reading to the students by asking them read it aloud. This is a bad approach in teaching reading skill, because when students were asked to do read written text loudly, there is a possibility that students will only read based on the pronunciation, not comprehension. Furthermore, the teacher also could build up the anxiety in the students, especially when they teach younger learner. If the teacher orders the students to read aloud and the students make a mistake, the students may feel bad during the lesson, and if this action repeatedly in regular basis, the students' confidence will become low sooner or later. Therefore, reading aloud in teaching and learning activities and improving reading skills is not suitable to be implemented. Reading aloud could be implemented if the teacher wants to improve the students' pronunciation. On the other hand, silent reading promoted as the correct ways or the best strategy in language teaching and learning activities in reading context. Reading itself is silent treatment. Reading itself is a silent activities, and by reading silently, the students could get better result in comprehending the text that they read, and decrease the chance of the students only read the vocabulary, only the pronunciation, while not comprehend the text completely when reading loudly. In addition, silent reading is based on many researches is faster to build up the comprehension skill for the students comparing with reading aloud, and this method could make the teaching and learning activities much more efficient. So what is the conclusion from our discussion in this video? That reading is one of the main skills that important to increase, because by reading we can get many new information, many new knowledge from the book that we read, that the student read, and it also increase their awareness toward the society. And reading itself can be divided into two, reading style. The first is extensive and the second is intensive, and many strategies can be implemented in the reading activities. Nevertheless, there are still some misconception in teaching reading, like reading aloud, because some teachers believe that reading loudly can improve the comprehension of the students, but it is not, because reading loudly can make the students only read the pronunciation, not trying to read with their comprehension. And that's why silent reading is the best approach in teaching reading teaching reading in the learning activities. That's the conclusion for today. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.